Hi, I'm Michelle Rupp, host of AFMC TV. Thank you for joining us. AFMC TV is a place to consider as a healthcare hub. AFMC is a healthcare nonprofit. We specialize in making our lives, businesses, and communities healthy. This space was created to share information with the community. You'll hear from healthcare experts on a broad range of topics. Medical topics like immunizations and telehealth, to lifestyle topics like strengthening a routine or keeping your family hydrated. Our promise to you is to keep you informed in a digital way, providing useful information to you and your family. Again, thank you for joining us and welcome to AFMC TV. About the vaccine. In the next hour, we will
very hard to play.
that this video will provide ideas
And also make sure
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of AFMC TV. We're so glad you're joining us. Joining me today is Dr. Wei from UAMS. She is a geriatrician, and we are talking about common forgetfulness. Dr. Wei, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm honored to be invited. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So common forgetfulness, is that such a thing?
Yes, there is very much such a thing, and I think it's important for us not to be worried or scared. When we were younger, in our 20s or 30s, and we forget something, we would just dismiss it and say, oh, I forgot. Then we would just keep on going and move on and everything would be fine. But when we get to be later on, we think, oh, I forgot. Is that terrible? So I want to first reassure all of us, we all forget things, not only when we're later, but when we're in our teens and 20s. I have to tell you, the first time I remember forgetting where I parked my car, I was in college. Now, I didn't think then that it was anything terrible. I still sometimes forget where I parked my car, but I'm wiser now. I park in the same spot. So you see, yeah. But there are other things that are very common that we forget and then we worry. So for example, the first thing is we get distracted more easily, okay? And it's absolutely normal and it's okay. We just have to remember that we need to focus, and there are certain things we can do to keep focused, but no matter what, it's easier to get distracted. So we have to remember that that's not anything except part of the way it is, because we're storing so much information more and more that, if you think about your computer, the more that's being used for storing memory, the less there is for the buffer for there to be free space to work with, if you will.
Yep.
Yes.
That's a great analogy.
Yes, thank you.
So when does normal forgetfulness become something that maybe might need a little more attention paid to it?
Yes. So for example, if you forget to pay your bill once in a while, all of us sometimes forget because we're in the middle of 18 different things and we might have forgotten to pay a bill. Well, that's okay. But if we forget to pay a bill in succession, say it's a monthly bill and we didn't pay it last month, we forgot to pay it this month. And if we forget to pay it next month, then we have to think about, is there something? And the answer is yes. Now, another thing we have to, and this I'm talking about everyday activities that we would be expected to be able to do, and all of a sudden we're not able to do everything. That is something to think about. Okay. So for example, if we repeat ourselves, we tell somebody a story and we say, we just ran into Mary in the grocery store. And then 10 minutes later, I just ran into Mary in the grocery store. And that is another sign that, we have to think about it. And the other thing is if we become disoriented to time or to place. So for example, if we keep asking what time it is, or where are we, or what's the day today, what month it is. It's okay to ask it, but if we keep asking it and we don't remember that we asked it, that's something that we have to start to think about. Another thing is communication. So if we sometimes forget a word, or we're at a loss to what to say, or we forget someone's name, and then later on at 2 o'clock in the morning, it comes to us. That's common too. But if it happens all the time, then we have to start to say, we have to pay a little more attention. There are also some other things. For example, there could be some personality changes, and that could be an early marker. There also could be some behavioral changes. So, for example, if we no longer want to change into day clothes from night clothes, we don't want to bathe, if we don't want to comb our hair, those are things that we need to worry about. It's okay to lounge around. It's okay to take a day off. Not all of us feel like getting dressed every 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. But if we start to do that day after day, and then we don't want to bathe, we don't want to brush our teeth, then we say, So then we have to start thinking about it. So those are some of the signs of forgetfulness that's getting a little bit more advanced. And so we want to, pay attention, take care of our loved ones, and be able to plan.
Those are all great examples of, I won't call them red flags, but maybe pink flags. If you start to notice them, it doesn't mean something's critical, but it certainly means, hey, wake up and begin to pay a little more attention. I want to ask, where women are concerned, do hormones or hormonal changes factor into any of the forgetfulness and or memory loss?
Yes, no, this is a great question. Finally, in the year 2021, we're starting to pay attention to the fact that we want to know why it is women, for example, manifest forgetfulness a little bit earlier. Why is it that more elderly women than men tend to have memory loss? Why is that? So it turns out now more research is being done to look at this, but many women start to have changes in terms of forgetfulness earlier when they start to enter premenopause. Now, we all think of menopause as occurring at around age 50, when the menstruation has stopped for more than 2 years. I'm giving plus or minus. Sure. But it actually starts earlier, and we notice it. Some of our loved ones and family and friends notice it, and it's normal, it's common. And be reassured that part of this is because of the hormonal changes, and we will adjust and adapt, and we're going to be okay. But there'll be a little bit of time when people are going to worry about us, thinking, gee, what's wrong with her? But that's because of the hormonal changes. Now, let me explain this a little bit more. Women have higher estrogen levels than men until they reach menopause. And then what happens is their estrogen level kind of really drops off. That differential dropping of the estrogen level is what affects our cognition. It turns out that postmenopausal women have a lower estrogen level than men. Now, I know that's a surprise for many people. What do you mean? Men have higher estrogen levels? The answer is yes. And they have it lifelong. And so the estrogen that men have continued to benefit them and continues to protect their brain. So what happens to the women who are postmenopausal? Well, they also have a little bit, but it's much lower than it used to be, which is why, if you think about it, most women are known for being able to multitask all day long, all night long, 24/7. And mom does everything, and mom's still doing everything. And that's partly because the estrogen protects us and helps us. But once we go through menopause, we're not able to multitask as much, and we do show a difference. Now the question next is, well, what are we going to do about it? And so that's something to think about. And the point of it is, though, there is treatment and it's not terrible and we're going to be able to adapt. But we also need to keep a positive outlook, and we need to reduce our inflammation in our bodies. Here's the thing, is that estrogen is the coolest thing, but it has limited duration. So we have to be ready and we have to adapt. And we're going to be just as good, but we'll just have to adapt to it.
That is so fascinating that it traces back even to some women who might even be in their mid to late 30s or early 40s to begin to start noticing some of these changes and cognitive changes.
Yes. And some of them who are in public life, there have been a few examples of women who were perimenopausal, and I would watch TV and they would be talking, there would be halting in their sentences, and I would say, gee, what's happening? And then what happens is, they kind of fade because they don't want to embarrass themselves. But I can tell you that later on, it'll come back. But there's a phase that, many women go through where they're not able to finish a whole sentence without some pauses, or there's a rapid succession of a few words, and then there's a slow succession of a few words, and they're embarrassed because it's like, what's the matter with her? But I promise you, most of the time, for most of the women, it will come back. It's just because of the huge hormonal changes that we have to adapt to.
Yes. Well, if I may ask one more question. We are quickly approaching the holiday season. We're going to have many family get-togethers, opportunities to see loved ones. Is there any signs that adult children might need to keep in mind when they are interacting with their parents? Perhaps they haven't seen their parents in a year or more. And as the adult children are trying to ascertain kind of where mom and dad are in their health journey, any thoughts that they might want to kind of tuck back in the back of their minds as they are interacting?
Yes, that's very good, Michelle. I appreciate that question because it's so critically important. The last thing we ever want to do is hurt our loved ones. And the last thing we ever want to do is stress our mom or dad or our, older loved ones. And so what we want to do is be very gentle. And what I can tell you is your mom or dad are going to be ready, and they're going to be ready to defend because they don't want to acknowledge that, they don't remember or this or that. So we have to be gentle and we have to watch them and see what they do. Now, if they repeat a whole lot, remember we were saying, if they repeat a story several times, we have to note that. And then if they have some difficulty cooking the holiday food or the dinner, or they have everything on the counter in the kitchen and somehow it doesn't all get done and we have to really help, that's a very important sign too. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to definitely go downhill from there, because there's a substantial number of people who have what we call mild cognitive impairment, okay, or MCI. And what that means is that they do have some difficulty, but they're not going to go on to continue to decline. They can stay there for quite some time. So we want to help them the best we can. We want to be gentle. We want to look for those signs that we talked about, but we definitely don't want to say things like, Ma, you just told me that 4 times. You just asked me that question 4 times.
Right.
All of us are guilty. I feel bad. We all feel bad after we realize that, that was the last thing we wanted to do, is for them to make them feel bad. So one thing to do, if you already have a hint, because you're going to have a hint really pretty quickly, just be gentle. the important thing is to be with them where they are, if you will. In other words, it's not fair to bring somebody who can't remember and who can't adapt to today, to make them to try to come in to our current situation, because things are changing so rapidly. And so it's easier if we try to go to them. And by that, I'm saying there is nothing wrong with, listening to the songs that they love, watching the programs that they love, looking at the stories that they love. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Okay. And that's what we want to do. We want to be gentle. We want to be cognizant that, mom or dad or our uncle or aunt or anybody can show some signs, and we just be gentle and just don't rub it in, if you will. The first time I went to visit my son, and I was trying to pour some milk from a huge 1-gallon jug, and I didn't aim it quite right. So I spilled the milk a little bit on the table. He goes, "Ma, I'm going to have to look for your nursing home." Now, he was kidding. Okay, he's actually a physician. But the point of it was like, how could this be? So what I'm trying to say is, yes, you can joke, but don't joke too much, especially if you notice that they really are having difficulty. They really are forgetting to put in the lettuce, as part of the dish, or they make the whole salad. There's something missing. Then we say, but we don't harp on it. We just keep on going because it is okay.
Excellent advice. Dr. Way, thank you so much for your thoughtful words and advice as we navigate growing older.
Yes, all of us, if we're lucky, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here next week for more AFMC TV.